Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're talking about something that is incredibly important for anyone learning English, phrasal verbs. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly are phrasal verbs and why are they so important? Well, let's break it down and explore why learning phrasal verbs can make a huge difference in your English skills. What are phrasal verbs? First, let's start with the basics. A phrasal verb is a combination of a verb and one or more words, usually prepositions or adverbs. These extra words change the meaning of the verb. For example, turn on means to activate something, like turning on a light. Look after means to take care of someone or something. Give up means to stop trying or to quit. Phrasal verbs are very common in English, especially in spoken language. Native speakers use them all the time, often without even realizing it. This is why it's important for learners to understand and use them too. Why are phrasal verbs important? There are several reasons why phrasal verbs are a key part of learning English. Let's go through them one by one. Phrasal verbs are everywhere. Phrasal verbs are used in everyday conversations, books, movies, and even formal settings. If you want to understand native speakers or express yourself clearly, you need to know these phrases. For example, if someone says, "I'll pick you up at 7," and you don't know what pick up means, you might be confused. They make your English sound natural. Using phrasal verbs can help you sound more fluent and natural. Instead of saying, "I will cancel the meeting," you could say, "I'll call off the meeting." Both are correct, but the second one sounds more casual and natural, which is how native speakers often communicate. They expand your vocabulary. Learning phrasal verbs is like learning multiple meanings for a single verb. For example, take up means to start doing something, like a hobby. Take off means to remove something, like clothes, or for a plane to leave the ground. Take in means to absorb or understand something. By mastering phrasal verbs, you can say more things with fewer words, making your vocabulary richer and more flexible. They help in understanding native speakers. Native English speakers use phrasal verbs all the time, even without thinking about it. If you don't know phrasal verbs, it can be hard to follow conversations, movies, or TV shows. For example, phrases like run into, to meet someone unexpectedly, or put up with, to tolerate something, are very common. Learning these will help you keep up and feel more confident when listening to English. They are essential for tests and work. If you're taking an English exam like IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge exams, you'll likely encounter phrasal verbs. They're also important if you're using English at work. For instance, in business English, phrases like set up, to establish something, or follow up, to check on something, are frequently used. How to learn phrasal verbs. Now that we know why phrasal verbs are important, let's talk about how to learn them effectively. Here are some tips. Learn them in context. Don't just memorize lists of phrasal verbs. Instead, learn them in sentences or situations where they are used. For example, "I'll pick you up at the airport." "She's looking after her little brother today." By learning phrasal verbs in context, you'll remember them better and understand how to use them correctly. Group them by verb. Many phrasal verbs share the same base verb, but have different meanings when combined with different prepositions or adverbs. For example, get up, get along, get over, get into. Take off, take in, take over, take back. Grouping them this way makes it easier to see patterns and learn them faster. Practice with real-life examples. Try to use phrasal verbs in your own sentences. For example, instead of saying, "I will cancel my plans," say, "I'll call off my plans." Practice makes perfect, and the more you use phrasal verbs, the more natural they will feel. Watch and listen to native English watch movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos in English. Pay attention to how native speakers use phrasal verbs. Write down any new ones you hear and look up their meanings. Use flashcards or apps. There are many apps and websites that can help you practice phrasal verbs. You can also create your own flashcards with the phrasal verb on one side and its meaning and example sentence on the other. Review regularly. Like any other part of language learning, repetition is key. Review the phrasal verbs you've learned regularly to make sure you don't forget them. Common phrasal verbs. Every learner should know. Let's look at some common phrasal verbs you can start using right away. Bring up, to mention something. Example, she brought up an interesting point in the meeting. Look forward to anticipate something with excitement. Example, I'm looking forward to the week. Turn off, to stop something from working. Example, please turn off the lights before you leave. Put off, to delay something. Example, they put off the meeting until next week. Run out of, to have no more of something. Example, we've run out of milk. Set up, to arrange or organize something. Example, they set up a new company last year. Give up, to stop trying. Example, don't give up on your dreams. Look after, to take care of someone or something. Example, he's looking after his grandmother. Fun ways to learn. Phrasal verbs. Learning phrasal verbs doesn't have to be boring. Here are some fun ways to make it enjoyable. Play games. Try word games like crossword puzzles or matching games focused on phrasal verbs. Join a language group. Practice using phrasal verbs with other learners in a group or online forum. Write a story. Write a short story using as many phrasal verbs as you can. It's a creative way to practice. Challenge yourself. Set a goal to learn and use 5 new phrasal verbs each week. Final thoughts. Phrasal verbs are a crucial part of the English language. They might seem difficult at first, but with practice and the right strategies, you can master them. Remember, learning phrasal verbs will not only improve your vocabulary, but also make your English sound more natural and fluent. So start small, practice regularly, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every step you take brings you closer to mastering English. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope you feel inspired to start learning more phrasal verbs today. Good luck, and see you next time.